At my son's soccer game, my husband's cousin said, "He tries so hard, he'll get there eventually." I replied, "He's already there, you just missed it while focusing on yourself." I didn't used to be someone who held grudges. I used to let things slide, bite my tongue, smooth things over just to keep the peace. But all of that changed one Saturday afternoon at my son's soccer game. We live in Springfield, Missouri. It's not fancy, but it's home. Most weekends, if the weather's decent, you'll find families lined up along the sidelines at the youth soccer fields, just outside the old high school. That Saturday was warm, mid-September, with a soft breeze. The sun was shining, and everything felt a little more hopeful. My son Eli is 9. He's not the biggest or the fastest kid on the team, but he's got something special. He's got heart. I see it every time he plays. He runs harder than anyone out there. If he falls, he gets right back up. He doesn't quit, and I don't say that lightly. I've seen him cry quietly in the car after missing a goal. I've seen him practice alone in the backyard with a flat ball and 2 folding chairs for a goal. He's got drive. He's got resilience. I was sitting in the middle of the bleachers where I always sit. Nate, my husband, was next to me, scrolling on his phone. He says it's for work, but I know it's usually ESPN or Reddit. And then she showed up. Mara, Nate's cousin, his perfect cousin, the golden one. She strolled in late, as always, wearing one of those overpriced matching jogger sets that somehow looked tailored. Full makeup, heels, to a soccer game, and that familiar polished smile that never quite reached her eyes. She sat down next to Nate without even glancing at me. No hello, no how are you, just dropped into place, crossed her legs like she was posing for a magazine cover, and pulled a lemon water out of her designer tote. She watched the kids for maybe 2 minutes, then leaned toward Nate, and not too quietly, said, "That one's Eli, right?" Nate nodded, eyes still on his phone. Mara gave a little laugh, the kind that's meant to sound warm but lands with an edge. "He tries so hard, he'll get there eventually." It took me a second. I looked at her, then back at the field. Eli was running his heart out, sweat on his brow, dirt on his knees. He had just made a clean steal from a kid twice his size. He was fighting for it out there. I looked back at her and answered calmly, though my stomach was in knots. "He's already there. You just missed it while looking at yourself." She froze for half a second, then gave me a tight smile, and went back to sipping her lemon water like nothing happened. Nate didn't say a word, just kept scrolling. Didn't stand up for Eli, didn't stand up for me, and that was when something inside me clicked. It wasn't just that comment, it was years of build-up. Mara's always been like this. She talks about her 2 boys like they're future Olympians, straight-A prodigies, little angels. She posts their report cards, their soccer trophies, videos of them playing piano with captions like "raising royalty." Meanwhile, when Eli learned to ride a bike, she commented, "Oh, they all get there eventually," like she was patting him on the head. She pretends to be supportive, but it's always laced with that tone, the one that says "I'm above you," and we both know it. But the worst part, Nate lets it happen. He always lets it happen. Every passive-aggressive jab, every friendly dig, wrapped in a smile, he just shrugs it off. Says she doesn't mean anything by it. Tells me I'm being too sensitive, so I stopped talking. I sat there for the rest of the game with a fake smile, and a storm brewing in my chest. And that's when I started planning. That night, after the game, I lay in bed while Nate snored beside me. I stared at the ceiling, heart racing. I couldn't shake her words. That smug little tone, "He tries so hard, he'll get there eventually." She said it like Eli was falling behind, like he was less than, like she and her kids were somehow above us. And Nate, he just sat there like he didn't notice, or didn't care. I started thinking about all the other times Mara had put us down. When Eli didn't get into the gifted program, she said it's okay. Sometimes it's better for kids to be average, less pressure. When I baked cupcakes for the school fundraiser, she laughed and said, "You're still doing things from scratch? That's so pure." And every single time, Nate just shrugged. I got out of bed and went downstairs. I opened my laptop and started going through her social media, Instagram, Facebook, even her old Pinterest account. I wasn't admiring her life, I was investigating. And it didn't take long to find something. Her whole online persona was a facade. She had one of those entrepreneur accounts, talking about how she was running an essential oils business, while raising 2 gifted athletes. But the business barely had any activity. Her posts were getting less engagement, and her latest post only had a couple of likes. I dug deeper and found her LinkedIn profile. She hadn't had a real job in years. She listed herself as the CEO of her own brand, but it was clear that she was just reselling oils and vitamins she bought wholesale. Then I found something really interesting. In one of her tagged posts, not something she posted herself, her husband, Craig, had shared a photo of their youngest son throwing a tantrum at a soccer game. The caption read, "The face of a kid who got kicked out for pushing a tears of joy, so much for the perfect angel athlete." And guess what? That game was last weekend. She never said a word about it. That's when I realized, Mara was desperate to maintain her image. She needed to be the best mom with the best kids living the best life. She needed everyone to think she was perfect, so I decided to start breaking that image, piece by piece. I didn't do anything drastic at first. I started with small whispers. I talked to other moms at the field, and casually brought up that post. "Did you? Mara's youngest got kicked out of a game for shoving a ref. Poor kid must be under so much pressure." It spread quickly. Then I started posting little things, not lies, but truths, framed carefully. One post showed Eli helping a teammate after a tough loss. "Proud of my boy. Winning isn't everything. Character matters." Another post was about the school fundraiser, with a nod to the parents who actually showed up and baked. "You know who you are." People started to take notice. The moms who used to idolize Mara began pulling back. One even commented, "Didn't know your son got suspended. Mara, everything okay?" She deleted the comment quickly, but I screenshot it. Then came the school board meeting. Mara's oldest son had been nominated for a leadership award, and she was bragging non-stop about it. But a few parents asked about his suspension earlier that semester. I didn't have to say a word. People just remembered Mara's face when she realized the cracks in her perfect world were starting to show. I'll never forget the look, the frozen smile, the twitch in her jaw. But it wasn't just Mara I was watching. It was Nate, too. He started acting differently, distant, yet tense, like he knew something was happening but didn't want to admit it. One night, I overheard him talking on the phone in the garage. I crept to the door and listened. "She's being different, colder. I don't know, maybe she's finally sick of all this." He paused. "Yeah, I know. I should have said something." That was the first time I heard him admit it, even if it wasn't to me. But I didn't. I knew that the only way to truly bring Mara down was to attack the one thing that mattered most to her, her image. Behind that image was a crumbling foundation, a struggling marriage, a failing business, kids who were dealing with the same challenges as everyone else. So I started digging deeper. What I found next changed everything. One night, after the kids had gone to bed and Nate was working late, I pulled out my laptop again. I'd gotten into the habit of late-night digging, not for gossip, but to find patterns. Mara had always been so careful online. Every photo was carefully curated, every caption just vague enough to sound meaningful. But there was one thing she couldn't control, tagged photos. And that's how I found him. A guy named Derek. He wasn't flashy, just a local gym trainer who worked at an independent fitness center on the edge of town. Nothing special, but there were enough pictures of Mara in his orbit. One showed him spotting her during a workout. Another was of them in a group photo at a charity 5K, standing just a little too close. And then there was one that stopped me cold. Mara and Derek at a local wine bar. No group, no fundraiser, just the two of them, sitting in a quiet corner booth, half lit by candlelight. This photo wasn't on Mara's page. It was on Derek. It had been up for 2 months, with the caption, "Always good company." The comments were turned off. I stared at the screen. My mind was racing. It wasn't just about ego anymore. She wasn't just a show-off or a backhanded bragger. She was lying to everyone, her friends, her followers, and most of all, her husband, Craig. And now I had a choice to make. I could sit on what I knew and keep chipping away at her image, or I could do something bigger. I could have brought the whole house down in one go, but I decided to wait. I wasn't ready to reveal my hand yet. I needed to be patient and strategic. Instead, I played the long game. I let the whispers grow louder but kept my hands clean. I showed up early to soccer games, brought extra snacks, cheered for everyone's kid. I helped organize the fall bake sale, and even invited a few of the other moms over for wine and cheese one Friday. We didn't talk about Mara directly, but her absence in the conversation said everything. Then came the school fundraiser dinner. It was a semi-formal event in the gym, with fold-out tables, plastic tablecloths, and catered barbecue. Mara walked in wearing a floor-length dress, like it was the Oscars. Derek wasn't with her, but you could see she was on edge. She kept checking her phone, laughing too hard, barely touching her food. Then I saw Craig. He walked in late, alone. His tie was crooked, his face tight, like he already knew something. He didn't sit with her. I watched them from across the room. Mara tried to pretend everything was fine, smiling and chatting with the PTA president. But I saw her glance at Craig again and again. Each time he was staring at her with this blank expression. Not angry, just done. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. But the real twist came a few days later. Not from Mara but from Nate. It was a Thursday. Eli had a dentist appointment, so I picked him up early from school. On the way home he mentioned something odd. Dad picked me up early last week. I frowned. He did? He said it was for a surprise lunch thing, but we didn't go to lunch. We went to some building. He said it was his friend's office. My heart dropped. I kept my cool in front of Eli, but after I got him settled at home, I went through Nate's search history. He usually deleted it, but that day he forgot. There it was, a name I didn't recognize, a counseling center for marriage and family therapy. I clicked the link, then another, and another. There were bookings for private sessions, one-on-one, not couples, just him. Then I saw the kicker, a session booked under both Nate and Mara. I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour. Everything tilted. The soccer game, the silence, the way he'd brushed things off, the way he'd called me cold in the garage. He wasn't just ignoring Mara's behavior, he was a part of it. They were closer than I thought, too close. And now all the little things made sense. The quiet defenses, the way he never pushed back, the way he looked at her sometimes, like she was an old joke only he understood. I felt sick, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel angry at Mara. I felt betrayed by Nate. She was a narcissist, a fake, a performer, but he was supposed to be on my side. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about a mean comment anymore. It wasn't even about Mara's fake life. This was war, and I was going to end it, both of them, in a way they never saw coming. I didn't confront him that night. I waited. I needed to be sure. I needed it to hurt. The next morning, I called in sick to work, dropped Eli off at school, and then drove across town to the counseling center where Nate had that session booked with Mara. I told the front desk I was his wife, and left a message for the counselor. I'd like to join the next session. Please call me to confirm. Then I waited again. 2 days later, I got the call. The counselor was hesitant, but agreed. The session was Friday at 2 p.m. I showed up early. I sat in the lobby with my coat in my lap and watched the door like a hawk. At 1:55 p.m., Mara walked in, fur tight, ponytail, fake tan, sunglasses indoors. Then Nate came in right behind her. He was saying something low, but she was laughing. That laugh she only used when she thought she was winning. When they saw me sitting there, both of them froze. I stood up, looked straight at Nate, and said, "So this is what work emails look like." Mara opened her mouth like she was about to speak, but I held up my hand. "Don't even try." The counselor came out then, confused, asking what was going on. I told her I was joining. Nate just stared at the floor. Mara tried to act calm, like this was all a mix-up, but I could see her pulse jumping in her neck. We went into the room, sat down, and I let it all out. I spoke first. I told the counselor about the years of Mara's digs, the constant comparisons, the fake praise. I told her about the soccer game and the things Mara had said about Eli. Then I looked at Nate. "I thought you were just spineless," I said. "Turns out you were complicit." Nate didn't deny it. He looked ashamed, but then he said something I'll never forget. "She understood." I felt like I didn't matter at home. Mara glanced at him, surprised. She probably didn't expect him to throw me under the bus to save himself. I just nodded. "That's fine. You wanted to feel important? Good. Now you get to feel alone." I stood up, looked straight at Mara. "I hope you liked playing Mom of the Year, because I'm about to take that crown right off your head." And I walked out. I went home and packed a bag. Not mine, Nate's. I left it on the porch. I filed for divorce the next week, but I wasn't done with Mara. Remember her essential oils empire? Well, I dug a little deeper. Turns out she was skirting some regulations, making health claims she wasn't allowed to. I submitted a quiet complaint to the FDA and the Better Business Bureau. I knew it would take time, but it would. Her Instagram went dark within 2 months. Her website went down with a notice saying it was currently under maintenance. Then came the final blow. School board elections. Mara had been gearing up to run for a PTA position. She wanted to be president. She'd been buttering people up for months, but I made sure everyone remembered the tantrum her son threw, the lies about her business, the whispers that she'd been in marriage counseling, not with her husband. She lost in a landslide. Craig, he left her 3 months later, took the kids and moved in with his sister in Kansas City. Nate moved into a 1-bedroom apartment downtown. I let Eli visit on weekends, but the respect between them was broken. Eli stopped asking where his dad was during games. He just played harder. And me, I kept my head down, got through the divorce, went back to school part-time, got a job at a local bakery. I started writing again. I didn't try to be perfect. I just tried to be real. It wasn't clean. I made mistakes too. I let resentment rot in me too long. I let people walk all over me because I thought it made me strong. It didn't, but I came out the other side. One day, at another soccer game, different season, new team, another mom sat beside me. She pointed to Eli on the field. He's got hustle. She said, you can tell he really loves it. I smiled. He's already there. I said, some people just miss it. She looked at me confused, but I didn't explain. I didn't need to. Some things are only meant for the people who've lived through the fire.